Howdy folks, another nice location, another beautiful eucalypt. This is the Wallamara track in Royal National Park. It's one of the best walks in the Royal you can do. If you don't know much about it, the main road through the Royal is the Sir Bertram Stevens Drive. That's just back there, not too far where I've parked. And you start off in this sandy heathland, sandstone heathland, shrubland. And if you want to walk for about 4 kilometres, the walk goes down into the rainforest, into the Bowler Creek rainforest. You get onto the Narrabeen sediments and you go down through this beautiful wet sclerophyll tall forest and you go down into the rainforest. It's one of the best educational walks in the Royal. So if you ever want to do that one, Wallamara track, it's well worth doing. I've just come here to look at a really nice eucalypt, and that's a Port Jackson Mallee, Eucalyptus obstans. And it's just growing over here. It's really common in the Royal. Now there's a few things to add and clarify before I get started. This is the beastie here. It's what we call a Mallee eucalypt, where, try and get the sun out of the way, they grow in sort of a multi-stemmed clump. That's what we mean by a mallee, and a lot of Australian eucalypts do this, especially across the vast island continent into the desert areas. They just have this multi-stemmed habit, growing from a lignotuber at the bottom. Now the thing with Eucalyptus obstans, got to sort of get this out of the way, is it's considered to be pretty much identical to another species that's been described, and that's Eucalyptus burgessiana, I think you pronounce it. Burgessiana. And that's called the Faulconbridge Mallee-Ash. So Eucalyptus obstans has a very tight, almost a tight sort of coastal Sydney distribution. It goes from about Barowra, what they call Ku-ring-gai Chase National Park, Barowra there, or Barowra Valley National Park maybe, down through Sydney, through the suburbs, very close to the coast. And then it gets down to Jervis Bay, which is south of Nowra on the coast. There's also a big population inland from Jervis Bay. It's sort of between Jervis Bay and Tallong. It's probably in there in Moreton National Park somewhere. I've never seen them in that area. But that's a sort of main geographic range. And it's all through the Royal National Park here, you know, obviously on the way down to Nowra and Jervis Bay. Eucalyptus burgessiana, that grows up in the Blue Mountains around Blackheath and Katoomba. And if you dive into the records for obstans and burgessiana, it looks like there's a fair bit of mixture. And if you get on Euclid, which I think is sort of the really primary website to look at, there's a note there saying that the late Laurie Johnson and the late Ken Hill, who really were two of you would say Australia's sort of 20th century eucalyptus experts, they, and I should say 21st century as well, though both of them are now deceased. There's no difference. There's no difference between Eucalyptus burgessiana and Eucalyptus obstans. And Eucalyptus obstans will be lumped into burgessiana. So they're pretty much the same species, even though they've been recognised as, it's probably because burgessiana was disjunct and growing up in the mountains only, maybe, that they thought it should be a different species, but they've studied both of them and they're the same. So I should be, for the video, I'm going to call this obstans / burgessiana, just to recognise both names and to sort of indicate that they're meant to be the same species on their taxonomy at least. I don't know what their genetics show. You might be asking just quickly, why is it going to become burgessiana and not obstans? Well, what I would assume, and I haven't looked this up, but I will do so before publishing the video, what it would mean is that Eucalyptus burgessiana was described first and was described and published in a valid taxonomic scientific journal first, and obstans was described later. And if that happens, the one that was described first gets priority. It can cause some problems. It doesn't matter how ridiculous a name it is, or it doesn't matter if it's a bit of a flawed publication or anything like that. If it's sort of accepted and put out there, then the name that was described first gets priority. And if obstans was described second, then it's the first one that gets the name. So that's caused a lot of headaches in the botanical world, but that's what happens. You've had instances of two different botanists publishing the same species in two different parts of the world at around the same time. That happened all through the 1800s, and that's just a bit of a taxonomic note there. But I had to get all that sort of, I won't say boring, but sort of maybe more... well, it's not even irrelevant. It's relevant detail, really. But you know, but I had to get all that out of the way, basically. But Eucalyptus burgessiana and Eucalyptus obstans, they're considered to be the same, even though historically they've grown in two different parts of New South Wales or separated. But let's have a look. The leaves of burgessiana, obstans, I believe, they're allowed to be up to about 2.5 centimetres wide. And it's very hard for me to snap this branch off, but I've got it now. There we go. Might help if I get into the sun or out of the sun. I might start with the shade and see how we go. They're allowed to be up to 2.5 centimetres wide, is my understanding. And Eucalyptus obstans, burgessiana, it's considered to be similar to some other mallees we have in New South Wales, like Eucalyptus stricta and Eucalyptus apiculata, but they have narrower leaves. They have much more narrower leaves, and I think they're allowed to be, I like to say it like that, allowed to be up to about 1.6, 1.7 centimetres wide. These go up to 2.5. They've got a nice thickish feel. They're very thick. Capitulata thick is what I keep saying. They're like Eucalyptus capitulata. They're very thick. Just using some. They're not papery thin in any way, shape or form. They're meant to be concolorous. They're meant to be completely concolorous. No hint of discoloration there. They've got these beautiful yellow petioles. That's what I look for when I see them. I just look for the yellow colouring. There's a lot of yellow colouring here. There's yellow stems, yellow petioles, yellow mid-veins on the leaves. So a bit like, I guess, maybe Eucalyptus seabori in some ways. It's got a bit of a seabori look to it. It reminds me of seabori a little bit. Seabori grows along here as a small tree a bit further on. I've seen it here many times. The leaves have got this beautiful venation, sort of yellow venation in the sort of bluey green foliage. The veins are sort of a paler colour. I'll just try and capture that if I can. Yeah, just got that nice paler venation. You can see it's even got yellow margins, yellow mid-vein. And it grows in harsh environments. It grows here on the Sydney sandstone, Hawkesbury sandstone and sandy deposits, associated sandy deposits. I've seen them down at Jarvis Bay where I monitor an endangered plant. I'll do some sunshine as well. Yeah, so a lot of yellow colour in there, but the leaves are very, I'd say more on the green side, but they've got a dash of bluey green, especially in the sun. There's a good dash of bluey green there. Now the buds and the fruits, they're described as being in sevens. Might start with the buds. This plant might be okay, but I had a plant earlier on that had some better material, or the buds looked more advanced. I might go back to that one. But there's our buds in 7s. They're defined as being in concrete 7s. They don't go to 15. They're just in 7s. And you can see they've sort of got it looks like almost a swollen operculum, or a swollen tip is starting to develop. And I assume that's sort of the swollen bud cap, sort of protruding out beyond the hypanthium. And they're meant to be 1 per leaf axil. So just 1 per leaf axil. I'm just going to go look at another tree which has, it sort of had some more, I think some more advanced buds. So I'm just going to go find that one. I just thought here the buds were a little bit more advanced, but I'm even struggling to get a cluster of 7. Well, they are up to 7s, but at least we can just have a look at that operculum again. Yeah, just the way it flares out there at the top. It's got a little sort of acuminate point on it. It is a good example of how you can see that some of the buds either get aborted or they fall off. Maybe an insect snaps them off. Maybe they're weakly formed. Be good to study that sort of thing in more detail. A lot of these guys have 6. They only have 6 buds. There's a fair few of them with 6 actually. That's quite interesting. Yeah, 6, 6, 6. Keep getting clusters of 6, but you know, as we know, they're meant to be, or they're potentially getting up to 7. There's a nice one there. 7 buds, a nice lime green colour, yellowy green. Just swollen at the tip there. I assume they've got a really short operculum, but these might still be developing. I'm just not too sure. And I'm pretty consistently getting 1 per leaf axil. I'll just finish off on the fruits. The fruits are pretty nice. They're a good size. Just check them out. I think shade might work better. These beautiful cup-shaped fruits in 7s. Like a big wine glass or some sort of, yeah, fancy wine glass. They've got a short pedicel, and the common peduncle is a lot longer. That's probably, just looking outside the phone, yeah, that would be 20 mil, maybe a little bit longer than 20 mil. With these pedicels that are less than 10 mil, probably maybe 5 to 10, something like that, I'd say. Beautiful, hard and woody. And you can see they would have been in 7s, but again, this one's showing that regular 6 feature. It might have come from 6 buds. You can see the valves are sort of inserted, enclosed. Enclosed is the right term to use. Below that descending disc. I think this has got a descending disc, this one. So even slightly Corymbia-like. But they're quite large. Just with my naked eye, I'd say more than 1 centimetre long. And at their widest, which is in the middle there, they're probably, yeah, they're well and truly over 1 centimetre. Probably something like 15 mil across. So they're a nice big fruit. I thought sometimes they had some ribs on them, but maybe they don't. I'm just gonna, probably no point getting another cluster, but I'm just gonna show you another one. Every time I look at these guys, they're laden with fruit. Every time I look at them. So even if I come here once every 6 months, they are laden with fruit. So maybe they hold on to it for a while, or they just produce it in large numbers. Maybe they hold on to it for years, so I'm just not sure. That peduncle there, yeah, it's probably getting up to almost 25 mil, but probably around 20. So that's typical for obstans. I keep calling it obstans. I'll have to start calling it burgessiana, I think, from now on. But in all my previous flora reports, I've got it down as obstans, where I've had them in my monitoring plots and things like that. I know I'm directly into the sun now, but just trying to show you how they can just exist in these really narrow stems, but just have a ton of fruit. So they've got a heap of fruit over here, and it makes for an easy ID. The buds are at the top of the foliage. There's buds there at the top, but the fruit are much lower down. The fruits are down well and truly below the tips of the foliage, tips of the branches. So you've got fruit coming all the way down here, and hopefully you can see how much there is there. There's just heaps. And I always see them like this, especially here, but in other habitats as well, like Jervis Bay. There's just so much fruit, and it comes all the way down. So you can get these really long fruit-producing branches. But you can see there, they're well and truly below the tips of the foliage, and there is buds. There's new buds at the tips. So it's sort of distinctive obstans. These are on the ground. They're even bigger, I reckon, than the ones I had earlier. You can see the valves here have opened, but they're going to stay in there. All the seed would have come out. Put them up there in that bucket with things like black butt fruit. These have got a more, keep calling them wine glasses. It's sort of one of those sort of taller wine glasses rather than those shorter, rounder ones, where the fattest part's in the middle and it narrows to the top. The last thing about Eucalyptus obstans, burgessiana, is I don't know why it's not grown in gardens more. I really wish it was, and I've never seen a plant for sale. But I don't know if the seed is hard to germinate. There's probably some horticultural people or even ecologists who you might be able to comment on why that's the case. I reckon it should be grown more in gardens. I reckon it'd be a beautiful local mallee to grow. I've had a real pathetic attempt at germinating the seed, and I didn't get anywhere, so I'll possibly have another go at it. Not from here, but from somewhere I can access seed. But you know, it'd be great to have a garden plant of this if you're on some sandy soil. These are a lot more rounded, these ones here. So I think they can vary. Look at the difference in shape on these ones. A bit more rounded. These are, yeah, well and truly, I'd say over 15 mil wide and a bit shorter. So these are looking more like sort of a pilularis sort of shape, a black butt shape. Quite beautiful fruits. They're really nice. And that's not even, I don't know if they're still maturing, but that's not even going down. The valves aren't even going down. You start to wonder, have we got a second mallee? It's where you can get confused. I don't think so, but just maybe showing how the fruits are really a little bit variable. Just there. The leaves look the same, the buds look the same. I can't think we've got a different plant here, but they're just they're much more sort of fatter and shorter fruits there in that particular case, or slightly fatter and shorter. Alrighty, that's probably enough. That's your beautiful Eucalyptus obstans or burgessiana. Just remember, you probably should call it burgessiana. I don't know where New South Wales Flora is with it. Maybe they have to just update their page and get in line with Euclid. But it's a beautiful plant. I wish it would, we'd see it more in cultivation. It might be difficult to grow, but it might need a bit more trial and error. Alrighty, hope you've enjoyed that one. If you ever get to the Wallamara track, do walk it. You might have to park a car at either end. That's what most people do because it's a 4 kilometre hike or so, but it's well worth doing. Alrighty.